Egypt, 1458 BC, the Battle of Megiddo. In the royal palace of Thutmose III, the spies had reported that the Prince of Kadesh was spreading discontent in and around Syria-Palestine. It was said that over 300 princes had gathered their men and were heading south towards Egypt. This story is written on the walls of Karnak on the 6th and 7th pylon. It was copied from a war journal that was written by the young scribe called Chineni, and in his own words, the battle echoes down to us through 3,000 years. By now, the rebels have reached the fortress city of Megiddo, 70 kilometers south of the Galilean Sea. Meanwhile, Thutmose and his generals, Juti and Yaminda, have mobilized a huge army and have reached the northern border fortress of Pharaoh, and here Chineni begins his war diary. Now at that time it happened that the Asiatic tribes who were in Sharon and from Yeruza to the marshes of the earth had begun to revolt against His Majesty. Year 23, first month of the third season, day 5. We have left Pharaoh in might and power and in triumph to overthrow the wretched foe and to extend the boundaries of Egypt, just as His Majesty's father Amun-Ra has commanded. The army arrives in Yemen 2 months later. They have passed through Gaza and Joppa and are now camped 20 kilometers from Megiddo. There are a choice of 3 routes to take. Route 1 is east through Tanakh. Route 2 is north below Mount Carmel. Both of these are reasonably safe, but there is a quicker route through the narrow Aruna Pass, only wide enough to travel in single file, man behind man. Chineni records the argument between the king and his generals. Duty speaks. Why go on the narrow pass while the enemy will wait in ambush and our rear guard will still be in Aruna? This argument carried weight, but Thutmose, after some hesitation, did not waver. I swear Israel loves me, and my father Ammon praises me. I will march through the Aruna Pass. If any of you wish to take the easy road, then go. If I were to do this, my enemies would say that I am afraid. The next day, with Thutmose in his chariot leading the way, saying, "No one shall go forth before me," he took his men through the narrow pass. After a 7-hour march, His Majesty arrives at a brook to the south of Megiddo. Year 23, third month of the third season, day 21. In the early morning, command is given for the entire army to move. His Majesty rode like Horus, lord of power like Montu from Thebes, while Ammon put strength in his arms. The soldiers beat their shields with battle axes, chanting war cries as they charged upon the enemy. The chariots fan out as wave upon wave of arrows fly towards the vile Asiatics. When the enemy saw His Majesty on his golden chariot, they fled to the city gates in fear, abandoning their horses and chariots. With the city gates closed and the enemy trapped within, the Egyptian army took to plundering. Chineni makes a list. 6 stallions, a chariot of gold belonging to their chief, 924 chariots, beautiful armor of bronze, 340 living captives, 83 hands, and many dishes of gold. His Majesty now lays siege upon the city, and it took 7 months for Megiddo to be forced into submission. Their children would be carried off to Egypt. The enemy would be captured, and all possessions would be taken back as property for the god Ammon. A list of 2,041 horses, 20,500 cattle, and 502 bows, numerous axes and blades. At last the king can return to Egypt, with Chineni's account of the final words of the defeated princes. Never again will we do evil against His Majesty Thutmose in our lifetimes, for we have witnessed his power. Let him give breath to us according to his desire. Thutmose went on to rule for another 25 years. The great Egyptian empire has been born. Chineni advanced his career to become a general, and his biography is on the walls of his tomb in Thebes. General Juti and Yaminda accompanied Thutmose in many more battles, and both have tombs on the west bank of Thebes. Over 1,000 years later, when the writer of the Book of Revelation wrote of the last great battle, he would set it here, at Megiddo, and they called it Armageddon.